Hello again, it's Chris Feehan from the ECG Armory. Continuing to work on my Shadow Trooper. This is going to be a more exciting episode because we're finally getting down to the nuts and bolts of actually assembling the armor. I'm opening a brand new E6000 tub of glue. This is a clear, transparent glue that's like a rubber cement that dries very flexibly and clear. I was going to use a combination of this and CA glue. CA glue is very useful, and you can use the Insecure glue and then spray the Insta-Set on it, and it sets it right away. However, the only thing I don't like about this is if you make a mistake while you're doing it, it's permanent and it's really hard to undo. It also can leave some white residue, which on a Stormtrooper wouldn't be a big issue. On a white Stormtrooper, on a black Stormtrooper, not so much. It's going to be much more problematic. For the Shadow Trooper, I think because I'm not in a huge rush, I'm going to use the E6000 glue. And I'm hoping that with the E6000 and letting it sit in between applications for a couple of days, I'll be able to get a really nice join and be able to take my time in actually assembling it and maybe be more accurate in the process. What I'm getting at now is just some of my clamps and other materials so I can get set and make sure I have them all handy. I already have my magnets out over here, which are rare earth magnets, and I'll show you the process of from start to finish what I do to actually glue the pieces together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do the right forearm, and then I'll do the right the right bicep, and then the right forearm, and then I might do one of the legs, and then I can do the rest of it in a sped up video. But basically, once you get the halves cut, I also cut both sides of these in that sped up video from the last video so that you get a nice join here. I already checked it with my arm, make sure that's big enough to fit. I did cheat a little. These are supposed to be 7.5 and 7.5, but I did make this one a little longer just to leave a little extra room for me to get my arm in. When you put the strip on, you're really not going to notice very much, so I'm not that concerned with it. I want to make sure that these line up as I glue it, and then I'm going to put down the strip, put some glue on it, and then put some magnets and some clamps on it to hold it. For these, I can do both sides at the same time. I probably will only do one side, let it dry, and then do the other side. There's really no rush, and I want to make sure I do it appropriately. For the forearms, I haven't cut the other side yet, so I am only going to do the one side, set it, and then I'm going to come back when that fully dries and do the other side next week. So I will do this as a two-step process and only do halves and then go back and do the other half at a later time. I find it's a little more accurate that way. You can make sure you got a good contact on the first one. Also, sometimes I like to reinforce the back, and I can use that opportunity when I'm closing up the second side to reinforce the back and make sure that that's done appropriately. So let's start with the right one. I want to start with the edge that's going to face outward, which on the right bicep would be this edge, just to make sure I get that as clean as possible. And then I can work on the back edge again next week after the glue dries. Usually the glue doesn't take that long to dry. It usually takes, I'd say, about 2 days. It does smell a little funny, and it does take a while for it to cure fully. So I like to leave it just for a couple of days and make sure it's fully set before I do anything. I'm also putting on rubber gloves just to make sure I don't get any on my hands, because then I might transfer it to other parts. And I also have down an old junk towel here, just so that as I'm working with the parts and moving them around and stuff, I don't scratch them. When I get to this stage, I'd be a lot more careful with the parts because there will be a lot of manipulating I'll be doing, and I don't want to scratch anything as I'm going through the process. So we do want to do this side right here. I'm going to get some painter's tape, and I'm going to open up my E6000 glue. Just going to pop the top there. I'm going to keep the regular cap. But what I do is I buy, you can get these on Amazon for like $3 for, I think it's like 100 of these replaceable E6000 caps. I really like having, instead of just squeezing it out of the tube with this giant thing, I like to use one of these caps that you can cut and be a little more precise with the glue. So I'm going to put that on, and I'm going to cut that when I'm ready at an angle so I can easily squeeze out the glue. And then you just chuck it, and then you put the regular cap back on. I'm telling you, it really saves you on a lot of the E6000 glue because a lot of it doesn't go to waste. if you use a regular tube and you keep manipulating it and you keep using this thing, sometimes you need to patch it up and it gets a little messed up. And you may end up losing glue. This way you get to use the entire thing and you get to do it as accurately as possible. It's more like a glue pen. So do get these caps and snip them and then just chuck them and put the regular cap back on when you're done using the glue. Okay, the first thing I do is line it up with the tape. I take some blue painter's tape and I put that in the area that I'm going to be joining, just to make sure that I'm lining everything up and to keep it stable as I put the glue down. So I'm going to put this on this edge, on the back part of the edge here, and get it right up against that seam. And I'm going to fold it down this way. And then I'm going to gently join the other piece, make sure I got it in the right direction. That's the top and that's the bottom, so I'm going to be able to join it right like this. I got the right and the right. I'm just going to line that up so that we line up as best as possible the bottom edge and the top edge to make sure they line up pretty appropriately. And I think I got a pretty good line up there. There's a little space in between. That's not going to be anything to worry about because the glue is going to fill that in. I'm just going to press on the tape on the back and make sure it's all stable and that everything's lining up. You shouldn't overlap these at all. They should be flush with each other because the cover strip is going to lay right on top of this and you want the cover strip to lay flat there. So see, we have a few gaps there, nothing too wide. As long as it's under like 1/8 of an inch, I'm not going to worry about it because the glue will fill it in. And this glue is like a rubber. So when it does dry, it is very flexible, so it'll make that joint very pliable. I'm going to take one of my, these are the strips that we already cut. This is one of my 15 strips. Let me see if this one looks good. Okay, and on this, one side was a little better than the other. I think this side was a little better. Let me see on this one. One had some scratches on it. Yeah, this has some scratches. I'm going to use this side here. And basically, I'm just going to put this here, and I'm just going to size it up. You'll see there's a little space on both sides. Usually you would try to avoid that, but I needed that just to make the bicep big enough to fit around my arm. Okay, I'm going to get my pencil and just mark where the stop points are going to be. And then I'm going to put little divots in the sides to round them off a little bit with the scissor. So I'm just going to start with this one up here. I might snip off that in there. Let me start with this one and start with the first edge. Just going to take my scissor and just cut it. Make sure I get a nice clean cut there. And then I'm going to clip the edges a little bit, the corners. Like that. Like that. Okay, so now I got a nice little edge there. I'm going to take some sandpaper and just sand that down quick. Actually, I'm going to use this one. This one's not so hot. Just going to sand that down a little bit, make it a little smoother. Because that was a scissor cut that's a little jagged. Okay, so now that's the top piece. It's going to go right there. And then I'm going to try to mark exactly where that bottom line is. And do the same thing on the other side. Now again, we can reuse the rest of the strip for the other side when we're ready. So I'm going to try to cut this as cleanly as possible so I can reuse the bottom part of the strip. And then I'm going to clip the corners just lightly like that. Make sure this is clean a cut as possible. There we go. And I'm going to just run that through some sandpaper quick just to smooth it down a little bit. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, so let's line that up. We're going to put the one side there, and then we're going to glue it. Okay, now I also have some magnets ready, and we'll get into that in a second because when you clamp it, you can clamp the ends. It's really hard to clamp the middle area. So I usually use magnets just to keep it on and solid pressure down the entire thing. Now the one thing with this glue is you don't want to use too much of it because it will squeeze out and ooze out of the sides. You want to try to use just enough so that you're filling in that gap in the middle and then you put a little on both sides so it'll spread out and fill in the rest. Now again, this is a little off center intentionally because I wanted to make sure that I had enough room to get into this. So it's only going to catch a little on this side and a little more on that side. So I fudged it a little teeny bit, but that should be fine. So I'm going to put a bead down the middle to fill in that gap in between the pieces. And I'm kind of squishing it in that gap. And try not to get any on any other parts. And then what I do is I just kind of wiggle this around and try to spread it around a little bit. I try not to add too much more. I'm just trying to make sure I have enough on both sides to cover it. That should be good. Now I got a couple of strings there. I just want to make sure I don't get those on the plastic. I'm going to lay this very gently on here. Let me make sure again I get the right side. Yeah, that's the one that I don't want. Lay that right in the middle. And I see you got a little that mist there, but that's okay. I'm going to put that down. I'm going to get one of my clamps, the little clamps, and put that on the end. I'm going to get another clamp and put it on the top. This one I think I used a little much on the top, but that's okay. I'm going to, with my finger, just squish that out. I'm going to put a clamp on it. Again, a little clamp for this because it shouldn't need that much pressure. Okay, now again, the middle is tough because the middle, we really don't have any pressure, and we need some pressure on that middle to keep the middle down. So what I do is I take some rare earth magnets, and I take these square ones and I put them on the back like this, and then I take some circular ones and just lay them on the top. You can see that caught there. I'm actually going to move this one up a little. Let that sit right in the middle there. I'm going to take another one and put that behind there as well. Oop, that slid off a little. Hold on. Yeah, this caught onto the other one. Hold on. Okay, that's holding that. Again, it's just a little pressure, but it's enough to like keep it down in the middle so it doesn't bow and it doesn't do anything strange. I might have to use a second one over here because I don't think this is holding it great. That's much better. Okay, so I'm just going to leave that like that. I got a little too much on this side. I'm going to just get it with my finger. Make sure I don't have any out on my finger so I'm not transferring it anywhere. Okay, that's looking good. Now that'll dry clear, so it's going to look really nice once it's all dried. There was a little excess there. I'm going to be a little more careful in the next one to use a little less. And I think we got a little spot here I'll rub off. And let me start on the next one in a second. I'm going to put this down on the drying table here. And then we'll start on the bicep. Okay, just change these gloves. Just make sure I think I saw a little glue here. See, and when this glue is wet, you can still kind of manipulate it, so I'm just going to, there was a little spot of glue on there, I'm just rubbing off. Making sure we're okay. Okay, good. Okay, let's start on the bicep, the same kind of procedure. Let me get my magnets ready. Because again, these things stick to each other, so I try to lay them around in various spots so they don't stick to each other. And I'll get some more of the circular ones. There's my circular ones over here. I'll just put those down. You can see I use the square ones on the back and the circular ones on the front because that way I can easily pop them off. Put that there. Okay, now let's do the bicep, the forearm, and make sure we get the right side for that. Let's see. Okay, now this is the side we're all cut. Again, I'm going to wait on the other side. I'm going to see exactly where I want to join that up, and I'm going to cut it, and then I'm going to join it. But I just want to join this one side and then wait a week or so and join the other side. Now you'll see it doesn't line up perfectly. There's a little bit of a disconnect here. I'm going to take my pliers and just pull that down a little bit just to get it more in line very carefully. Just to kind of get it there so it kind of lines up. I don't want to do it too much because you get some white in the plastic, the black plastic, but it should be enough that it will line up a little nicer. You could also use a heat gun for that, which is a little dangerous, but if you have to, you can. And that lines up pretty well. Let me make sure it lines up the whole way down. Again, there's a little space in some spots, but not too much. So we should be pretty good. Now let me see if that piece that we cut is going to be enough to fill this. Actually, yes, I could reuse that last piece, cut it further, and use that and cut it there. So we're going to continue using that same piece, that 15 millimeter piece, to do this piece as well. And I'm going to use the same kind of procedure. I'm going to take the tape, I'm going to tape it up that whole length of that side. Like so. I'm going to join it to this one and make sure that it's all lining up. Oh, I think I got the wrong side. Let me just, oh yep, I got the wrong side. I've got to do the other side. The curved side. Okay, let's do this side. I'm going to move that down. And try to line that up as we go with the tape to make sure that we're joining it as closely as possible. It looks like a pretty good lineup. You can see it's a little disjointed. The strip will take care of that. Once the strip is on there, that'll take care of any little inconsistencies. But I think we're almost there up. I think this, we should start over on this one a little. Let's get that lined up. Maybe give a little more in the bottom. And try to join these up from behind. So that's a little bit of a bow there. Let me see on the bottom if I have to give a little more on the bottom. Okay, that's lining up very nice, but you can see it's a little uneven, so we're going to have to use those magnets to hold it down in those middle areas to make sure that it stays down where we need it to stay down. And as you can see on this one, it is dead center in the middle. So we have to make sure we get that dead center and glue it down appropriately right in the center there. Okay, so let's see. We can get the glue going. Let me get another pair of gloves on. Usually don't have to change the gloves, but I got a little glue on my hand on that last one, and I don't want to risk having that on my fingers as I'm working with the glue. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. This time I'm going to use a little less. I think I used a little much in the crevice there, and it oozed out a little bit. So I'm going to just use just a little bit right down the middle, right where that crack is. You can see it's bowed there a little. I'm hoping that that'll straighten out once I put the magnets and the clamps on. It seems like a lot too. I'm going to have to Make sure that that's not too much. Okay, let's see if I can get that squished down. That's a little much there. I might actually run. Some people use a piece of like wood to spread it like an ice cream stick. I'm just going to use a little piece of plastic here and make sure it's even down the whole thing and on both sides as best as possible. Okay. Looking pretty good there. I want to make sure this is cut at the right spot. I had marked it, I didn't cut it. Let me just cut this quick. This last little piece I'm probably not going to need, so I'm just going to cut that right off and snip it. Again, I'm going to run it over some sandpaper just to smooth it out a little bit, and then apply it. Make sure I got the right side. This is the better side. I'll start applying this very carefully. You don't want to smoosh it around too much because you don't want to spread around the glue. You want the glue to be dead center. I think I can put a clamp on the bottom. See, it's already rising up, so I got to get a clamp on there. Make sure it's sticking there. I'm going to run my finger across here, make sure it's lining up in the top, and I'm going to put a clamp on the top, and then I'm going to put the magnets in the middle. Now again, this can be challenging because the plastic sometimes is a little curved or bowed or not perfectly straight, so I'm going to press it with my fingers here while I got the clamps on, just to make sure it's pressed down all the way along the ridge here. And I can feel some gaps, so I'm going to definitely use some of these magnets. I'm going to put a magnet behind carefully. You can see the bowing there. I'm going to get a couple of these magnets on top here. Try to hold it down a little better. Same thing over here. I'm going to use actually two of these in this middle section, and two of these to hold it down more in the middle here. Let's say right about there. I might even use another one in the very middle. Let me see if I can pull that off. Get these two together and we'll get two more square ones. So I still see some bowing happening there. Let me make sure I get two more. Let me spread these out. Do another one right in the middle. And you can add magnets. With these magnets you can add more and it'll make it even stronger. So I'm going to add another one right here. Now I have 6 magnets behind here. And I'm going to put 6 on the top to try to keep that down and keep that pressure on, because it is separating. I can see it. See, so I want to keep that pressure on, and it's almost impossible to do it with 2 hands. So what this does is it allows you to do it with the magnets and make sure that they're keeping these down as best as possible. You can see it's like perfectly held down, and these magnets should be strong enough to keep it down, with 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom. Just going to work it with my fingers, make sure it's lining up. I'm doing it the whole way down. reposition this clamp and make sure it's on there good, a flat area. And that this clamp has got it good. It's nice and sitting good, yeah. Well, that's looking really good on that side. It's looking good on that side. Just making sure, again, there's no gap. And these magnets will keep it down. I can't even tell you what I do without the magnets. I used to try to have to clip it with clamps or use the speed glue and glue it immediately. And if you miss one spot, you get a bow in one area, and it's very hard to fix that. But now we have a nice, clean, level thing. That's why also I don't even attempt the other side at this point. Do one side at a time, let it dry, let it fully cure, let it build to full strength, and then you can manipulate the other side much easier once that's done. Okay, so I think we're good with that. I'm going to leave that as is. I'm going to go put that on the drying rack, and we'll start on the next piece. Okay, let's start on one of the legs. And this is one of the legs. I've already taped it up. I had to do some brief minor trimming on the bottom here to get it lined up. And I got it all taped up already, ready to go. And I have a 20 millimeter strip ready to go and to add to it. Let me make sure I have my magnets handy. This one is all really, really uneven. When you put this on, I have to say the legs are a real pain in the neck. They really have that big curve there, if you can see it from the side. So it is going to be a challenge to keep this down. I might even try to bow this a little bit manually before I even put it on there, because you can see when I put the strip on, it's straight and that's completely bowed. So you really need the magnets there to keep that down in those areas while the glue is drying. So I'm going to see which side is better here. I'd say this side. I'm going to mark where the tippy top is and the bottom is. And the bottom here I might have to cheat a little because it is a little uneven. So I'm just going to go right across here. I think that would be a good cut. And then we can do it from there. Actually, I'm going to go a little lower. Go a little lower from there. While I'm holding this, I'm going to go like right there. Just to get it to the very bottom. Okay, I'm going to cut this, trim the edges on that slight angle. Just a teeny bit off the corners, just to get the corners off, and then I'm going to quickly sand it a little. I'm going to do the same on this end. My sandpaper here. Just going to sand that a little bit just to take off the anything that might catch you. Just line this up one last time, make sure it's looking good. That's looking real good. That's going to go right to the top, right to the bottom. Again, this is a 20 strip, 20 millimeters, which is different than the ones we just used on the bicep and the forearm. Let's line that up. Okay, that's looking good. Now what I might do is just with my hands, just bow this a little gently so that it has a little slight curve in it, just to make it sit better on the leg. I'm giving it an ever so slight curve. It seems like unnecessary, but it does really make a difference when you're trying to get a flat, straight piece of plastic to glue onto another piece of plastic that's curved. Okay, so I did make that a little bit curved. I'll do a little more without making any permanent mark on it. Again, you can use a heat gun as well, but I'm not going to go that far. I'm just going to do it with my fingers. And try to get a slight curve in there, because that way it'll stick a little better. And now it's laying flat in there. See that? So that's going to make it a little easier for it to adhere with the glue. Let me get my glue ready. Let me just wipe off the tip. I'm actually going to change the tip and cut it a little less. I think this one was open a little too much. And that's again the beauty of these tips is you can swap them out and change them. And I'm going to give it a much less opening here. I think that's going to be much better. Let me get these holes out of the way. Make sure we got our strip ready. Okay, this is going to be the same kind of procedure. I'm going to go right down the middle, fill in that crack, and then just move it around a little bit. Not too much. Now again, once I got that initial on, I'm going to wiggle it around a little, get a little on both sides. I don't want to add too much. You can always reinforce it later from the back. I don't want too much to squeeze out when I press down the cover strip. At this point, I'm really not adding anymore. I'm just kind of manipulating it around and making sure it's on both sides of the plastic. Because when I press it down, it will spread out. This is very malleable rubber cement. Okay, so I'm going to put that over here. Keep that away from us. As I put the strip on, I'm going to carefully put the strip on. Actually, I can use it. I can put a little more. I think that might be too little on the top. I want to make sure the top and the bottom have a little extra. Let me just put a little bead up here. Spread that around a little more. Spreading it around a little more just to make sure we get coverage, and a little more on the bottom. I'm doing a little bead just where I'm going to put the clamps. Okay, I don't want to get too many strings, so I'm just going to carefully pull that away. Okay, and let's start putting it on. I start from the top here and just kind of press down as I'm going. Try to get it evenly on the entire thing. Make sure it's lined up in the middle. You notice there is a middle. There's those little ridges on each side. I'm trying to get it in between the ridges on each side, the whole way down. Just putting some light pressure as I go. And then I'm going to clamp it on both sides. Yeah, I got a good clamp there. Push down, make sure it's getting in that curve. And I'm going to put a big clamp on the top here. Okay, now we got to take care of the middle again. The middle is always problematic. I'm going to get some of these rare earth magnets. I'm going to separate them out. These little plastic things you're seeing coming off them are the separators. Let me get 6 of these total. 2 and 2. And we'll get 2 sets of these. Make sure you take out the plastic from the middle of them. I have, my old set of these was much smaller. I found these big ones work a lot better and cover a lot more area. So I'm going to have them all ready to go. Let me start by putting this one up in the first third or so. Right up against the thing here, and then I'm going to use this to hold that in place. Okay, I'm going to do the next one about in the middle. That should hold it well about midway. And I'm going to put another one about here. Okay, so there you have it. We got a good consistent pressure along the entire length of the glue that we're doing across the side. We don't have too much excess going out at all anywhere on here, which is fantastic. That's always the problem, is if you put a little too much, it's going to start oozing out the sides. You don't want that. You want to try to keep it all in the middle. Let me just make sure this clamp is on good. Yes, got a little oozing. Again, we can correct that. The other beauty of this glue is you can kind of scrape it off and use some tools to get it out of little crevices if there's too much in one little area. But that's looking very good right down the middle. And again, we got these extra magnets to add a little pressure so that it's going to work very well to keep it down the entire length of the curve there. So let me put this aside. Okay, thanks everybody. I'm going to move on to the other biceps, the other forearm, and the other leg. And I'm going to do that as a speed up video, and I might even do the thighs while I'm at it as well with the 20 millimeter strips. Again, I'm only doing the one half. I'll do the other half next time, and I'll see you then. Bye, everybody.